Okay, let's install OpenShift 4 on AWS. So first, we're going to install and configure the AWS CLI toolkit. We're going to download the installer and the OC binary. We're going to run the OpenShift installer, and then we're going to check on the installation. So step one, install and configure the AWS CLI. We're going to use curl to download the latest CLI. And here we go. Unzip the installer. And install it to bin AWS. Okay, it's installed, so let's see if it works. Yep, we have the latest version installed. And we're going to clean up the downloaded files and temporary directories. Next, we're going to create a credentials file. I'm just getting the availability zone and region using the metadata API of AWS, just in case, I forgot. And we are going to create a configuration file. And let's see if it works. There we go. And done. Next step, we're going to download OpenShift and the OC binaries. So let's download the OpenShift installer from cloud.redhat.com. We're going to download version 4.4.3. And the OpenShift installer is a single binary. It uses Terraform and it's part of the IPI to provision your infrastructure. In this case, we're using AWS. So the OpenShift installer is going to provision the virtual machines that are required to install and provision a OpenShift cluster. So let's unpack this to a reasonable path and let's get started. As you can see, we have the OpenShift installed. This is the installer we need. Let's just clean up a bit. There we go. And is now executable. Same thing with the OC client library. We're going to use this to connect and manage our cluster. This contains OC and kube control. So again, we're downloading it from openshift.com. Same version as our installer. Same idea, we unpack it. As you can see, it comes with OC and kubectl. Just a bit of cleanup here. And we'll make it executable. You want to do the same thing to kubectl. And OC comes with bash Z shell completion, so you can run OC completion bash or OC completion Z shell and just dump it to your completion file there. So putting it in etc. You can also put it in your profile if you don't want to do this. It's for all of the users on the system. That's it. Next step. Okay, step 3, run the OpenShift installer. Okay, it's time to install OpenShift. So we're going to use the multi-stage installer. It basically gives you the option to customize your install YAML and pick different VM sizes before it goes off and creates everything. So it's going to create the install config.yaml file that you can later edit. So just a couple of things here. I'm using a pull secret, which I've downloaded from cloud.openshift, cloud.redhat.com. So you do need this as part of this installation process. I'm using US1 as my region, and I'm giving my cluster a representative name. Before you run the OpenShift installer, keep in mind that you need to have DNS set up. So in this case, with using AWS, you'll want to have Route 53 with the top level domain created for you. So let's see what running the installer with create install config option has done here. As you can see, it's created install config YAML. So let's take a look at that. Yep, as you can see, we have a sandbox base domain, and we have the compute we want. We're using 3 replicas for compute and 3 replicas from the control plane. We have networking set up. Also, we have our pull secret here. I'm not going to show everything. And we're going to create a YAML manifests. So that's a multi-stage process, right? We're using a multi-stage install process. So first, we've generated this install config. We have the option to edit it. And if everything is OK, we're going to create YAML manifests from it. So we've just given it the cluster directory here, where install config was previously generated, and it's now generating the manifests. And let's see how it looks. As you can see, directory here, manifests, and we're also going to create the ignition configuration files. So stuff that bootstraps CoreOS. There we go. And we're going to start the cluster. So this is going to take a while, so I'm just going to start this installation. It's going to take about half an hour to get everything provisioned on AWS. If there's any issues, you can just delete the cluster, change a few settings, and start again. So I'm creating the cluster with the manifests that were created here. And I'm just going to log to a file. You'll actually create the OpenShift install log anyway, but just in case. And we're going to let this run for quite a bit. As you can see, it's starting. It's using the credentials, and it's creating the infrastructure resources. Okay, while the installer is processing there, what you can do is tell OpenShift install.log, mind the dot in front of it, and you'll be able to see exactly what's going on. So let's try a tail here. So you can see it's already done the apply, and now it's waiting 20 minutes for the Kubernetes API. Once this is done, you'll be able to go back and complete the next steps. Okay, progress check. The API for Kubernetes is now up, and we're waiting 40 minutes for the bootstrapping to complete. Okay, here we see a bit of progress. We're now destroying the bootstrap resources. And now we have a cluster which should be ready to initialize soon. Looking at the log files, we're at 96% complete. 97. And the installation is complete. We have the OpenShift console URL. We also have the console user and the password that was automatically generated. Let's check on the installation. So first, we're just going to use the kubeconfig file that was generated during the installation, which has our authentication and cluster information. And we're going to see if we're able to log in. As you can see, OC gives us system admin. I can see that the client and server version match, and we can take a look at some of the nodes. One, master, 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 worker, 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 free of each. Let's take a look at the machine sets. There we go, 1A, 1B, 1C. So our masters and our workers are actually spread across an availability, a region with an availability zone within a region. So we have 1A, 1B, 1C. So let's take a look at the machines. There we go. As expected, we have the master, and the master is spread between 1A, 1B, 1C, and also the workers between 1A, 1B, 1C. And let's validate the pods. All the pods here should be in the state of running. So shrink it, shrink it, shrink it, or completed. So there are no failing pods. And let's take a look at, oops, there we go. So let's take a look at the console, and that's it. Okay, so here we have the OpenShift console. I'm going to log in with kubeadmin and the password which was found in the log files. So let's click on login. And here you can see I'm logged into my cluster. I can see the nodes, the pods, storage classes, information about CPU, file systems. I can also switch to a developer view, and I can provision workloads. However, as you can see, I'm actually logged in as a temporary administrative user. So first I need to update the cluster auth configuration and perform a couple of baseline settings. Okay, another thing to take a look here is the AWS EC2 describe instances. And I'm just going to take a look at what we have. Okay. So let's compare this to the information from OpenShift. So let's take a look at the OpenShift install graph here. So it actually generates a graph with installation graph with all the configurations. So we can actually render this, right? So let's take a look. And here you can see the file generated from the graph is configuration. So